Use my phone. Is 8:54. Hello, I'm Danny Voisine, and today I will explore my paternal great-grandfather, Cyril Voisine. Using genealogy records and history research, I'll examine how his French-Canadian identity shaped his life in the United States and how race and power played a role in his experiences. Through this analysis, I'll connect a personal memory to larger systems of racial categorization and social mobility. Critical family history, as developed by Christine Slater, encourages us to examine how race and power shaped our ancestors' lives. Slater explains that critical history family situates the study of families within the broader historical and social context of power relationships. Rather than simply tracing lineage, it compels us to explore how our families were situated within systems of privilege, marginalization, and racial classification. This project investigates how Cyril Voisine's French-Canadian identity influences his life path, relationships, and how future generations, including myself, inherited racial and social narratives. Who was Cyril Voisine? Cyril Voisine was born in 1878 in Fort Kent, Maine, a border town deeply rooted in French-Canadian traditions. And he passed away on October 31st, 1952, in a similar town nearby in Keegan, Maine. Cyril had lived his life in this community, marrying and raising children and working in trades typical for the region, like farming, laboring in the lumber industry. His world was shaped by tight community bonds, religious rituals, and a deep connection to the French heritage. As you can see, I managed to get his birth certificate, his passing away notice in the newspaper, a marriage log from Ancestry, and then a picture of him that was sent to me by a family member. I located 5 key documents in his ancestry record: his birth, his marriage records, his World War II draft card, which is above, and his death notice. His draft card lists him as white and identifies his work as a laborer. That's the top middle. The 1950 census, the one below, confirms he was a part of a French-speaking household. And then his passing away is seen here. The photo on the left is from his earlier days when he was raising his children as well. These documents offer windows into how Cyril was racially and socially categorized and provide insight into his life's work and history. In terms of how the French Canadians experience in Maine was very difficult. They straddled the line between whiteness and ethnic marginalization. In terms of them, the issue of facing discrimination or assimilation pressures, many Anglo-Americans viewed him as clannish or backwards. Despite everything, schools in Maine actively discouraged French language use in Protestant English-speaking societies, exerted pressure to conform. And so, despite being legally white, French Canadians had to fight for the respect and equality in the workplace, at school, and in public life. Even if you look at the census in 1950, census records consistently list Cyril as white with no ethnic distinction. However, this designation masks important cultural and ethnic and racial experiences. In the early 1900s, for example, whiteness was not a universal concept. Ethnic Europeans were often ranked with a racial hierarchy. This census normalized whiteness over time, generally erasing ethnic differences. For Cyril, in this case, this means his French Canadian identity became invisible in the official narratives of the community, the nation, and the world, although it shaped his lived experience. As I said, it was recorded as white in all censuses. No ethnic designator assumed a full assimilation in his family. And the cultural nuances were hidden under the so-called white category. Yeah. Why do I bring this map up? Because the fact of the matter is, if you look at all the arrows, the black arrows on this image, for instance, the path of immigration between 1840 and 1900 mainly came from the north, not the east. As you can see by the map, if you look at Maine really closely, I drew a dot and a green line showing his family and how they immigrated into Maine from New Brunswick, which is the province next door to Maine. Why did French Canadians migrate to the U.S.? Did the U.S. law shape their identity, and were they treated as full citizens or as an ethnic group? From my research, French Canadians migrated to the northern U.S. towns like Fort Kent, which is where I drew the arrow, for economic reasons. However, in doing so, they encountered racialized expectations. The dominant model of whiteness in America was Anglo-Saxon and Protestant, according to Initiative 1995. French Canadians, Catholics, French-speaking, and clannish did not fit the mold. While they could access legal citizenship, full cultural belonging was conditional. According to Rodinger in 2005, while they could access legal citizenship, full cultural belonging was conditional. They had to demonstrate their loyalty and adapt linguistically to be considered good Americans, which to me is quite shameful because if you look at how other ethnic and racial issues for other people happen, it is sickening, it is frightening, it is fallacious. I think it is wrong, and I think it costs a lot of issues to occur. In terms of economic and social mobility, what kinds of jobs did Cyril and other French Canadians possess, and were they able to move up socially? And did race or language impact job opportunities? From my research, Cyril worked as a laborer, like many French Canadian men in the area. While he wasn't barred from jobs due to race, his cultural identity likely affected where he could work, how he was treated, and what advancement was possible, according to Bowen. I know for a fact that language barriers, perceived clandestineness, and discrimination kept in many low-wage jobs like lumber, like farming, like simple mechanics. In my great grandfather's case, as you can see by his worker registration card, farming. And he was working for a farmer named Xavier Deschamps, who was in Keegan, Maine. And this card was signed somewhere around 1900, 1910, 1920. Cyril worked as a laborer, like many French Canadian men in the area. While he wasn't barred from jobs due to his race, his cultural identity likely affected where he could work, how he was treated, and whatever he could try to do to make advancement happen, which was very unfortunate. Language barriers, perceived clandestineness, and discrimination kept in many low-wage jobs. Though technically white, French Canadians had to navigate economic systems that didn't value skills or identity equality. Okay, between the three of the four past generations, myself on the far right, my uncle, my dad's brother. I don't have a picture of my dad, but my dad looks like my uncle, and then my great-grandfather, Cyril. In terms of critical race analysis and family legacy, there are two questions I want to answer in what I'm going to be saying is how did race shape Cyril's life and descendants, and how does this history influence racial and identity in my family today? Applying critical race theory reveals that race is socially constructed and historically contingent, according to Haney Lopez in 1986. For Cyril, whiteness was something he had to earn by aligning with dominant cultural expectations. His story, like many, is one of cultural compromise. His descendants, including myself, inherited a racial identity cleansed of its ethnic roots. If you look at my life and my grandmother, my uncle's, as you can see, his mother, my grandmother, only spoke French. They never really assimilated by speaking English. My grandfather, my uncle's father, my dad's father, I never met him before I was born. He died 4 years before I was born. And from the stories I gather, they never assimilated to the fact that they learned English. All their kids did. My uncle, shown here, my dad, and my aunt all learned English while also being able to retain some heritage of my family by speaking French. And so race did shape because they viewed him as white, yes, but the problem is that the language issue is a racial identity today. I don't speak French. I tried taking French in high school. It was a disaster. My grandmother, my grandfather, my uncle, my aunt, and my dad, they all spoke French, with the latter generation speaking English. Being able to retain cultural aspects of the food, of the work ethic, of the pride they have in themselves, showed within themselves. My uncle and my dad, for instance, worked labor jobs. My aunt was a housewife because she married outside of the racial narrative of marrying white. She fell in love with a Filipino, and all their children are half Filipino and half French. And none of my cousins, my aunt's kids, look alike. And even with that, they look at my aunt like she's crazy having kids that don't look like her, and it hurt her very bad. And this was in the from 60 till 70 when she had her kids, all four of her kids, because her kids don't look anything like my aunt. And that has caused a great hurt in the history narrative of my family because racial identity, yeah, because the children are half Filipino, half French, while my cousin, my uncle's child, is half French and basically half Eastern European. The difference is whoever sees my family back, it saddens me to see my aunt and my cousins being hurt in school, verbally, physically, because of the racial barriers that happen. And quite frankly, my cousin, my great grandfather, or even my grandfather and grandmother, probably wouldn't have put up with it in today's society because of too much racial divide, and it just saddens me. As you can see, my cousins on the top right and so forth, they do not look like my grandmother, who's the one sitting in the chair in the family photo to the left. She passed away a few years ago. And then all my cousins and my second cousins and my third cousins are in that photo on the far left. The cousins on the top right floor are the ones that my aunt had with a Filipino man who is standing next to my uncle in the photo. My cousin that I'm following in the footsteps from going to the same junior college and same undergraduate universities in the bottom left, holding her son in her lap, and the son is half Spanish, Mexican, and half French as a result. While me and my sister on the bottom right are half French and half Europe, Western European. It saddens me that all of us in all these pictures here are treated very differently in society, and that sucks. As such, this research taught me race is just not a label, it's a lived experience shaped by history and power, like Slater said. While Cyril's life shows how identity is fluid, negotiated, and sometimes erased. Learning about his story gave me the tools to question simplified racial labels and to dig deeper into my family's past. Like it just explained, my family has gone and expanded into a form where the French aspect is disappearing. I'm the last male Voisine. Every one of my cousins is not a Voisine because they were born into the Tigo family, the ones on the top right, and the majority of them in the big photo. While my cousin to my bottom on the middle, holding her son, was a Voisine. She got married. She married twice now, and she lost the family name, but she can barely speak French as herself. Why is this important to me? It is very important to me because of all the dips and turns and divides into what's going on in this world, because everyone is viewed differently. And I am very saddened that our family is not closer together. I live 300 miles away from my cousin in the picture holding her son, and I live well over 300 miles from the rest of my cousins and my uncle-in-law in the photo on the left. My family means a lot to me, and I get along more so with my dad's side of the family than I do my mom's side of the family because of the intertwining and the nature and the nurture. My dad's family cares about his family, cares about their family. My cousins care about each other. I care about my cousins, my second cousin, my third cousins, and so forth. And that in itself is a problem because of the fact I can't see him every day. And I look at the history of what I saw, and it shows all the complexity. And in going through this research, I traced my dad's side of the family back well beyond 1500. And I chose my great grandfather because of the fact that I can't get any photos or anything from the previous. My great grandfather is the only one that I can really focus on because my grandfather, I have no photo of him, and barely any of his stuff is on ancestry.com. My cousins, I are too young to do something, and so the only person I could do is my great grandfather. And I believe he, if he were alive today, would be proud of how our family evolved and how proud that we are better off in this environment than he was, because I believe he struggled a lot and so forth. And so I created a list of citations here, and I used a lot of them in this research. And I draw on primary records from Ancestry.com, critical race literature, and scholarship on French Canadian immigration and assimilation. These works help frame my understanding of identity, privilege, and generational changes. And I thank you for watching this video and listening to what I had to say regarding my critical family history project. I hope this has encouraged you to reflect on your own family's place in the story of race and identity in America. Our pasts are more complicated than they seem, and by exploring them critically, we uncover the truths that we live by today. So I would like to thank you very much for paying attention to me and my history. I did the best I could, despite what limited resources I could do on Ancestry, trying to find all kinds of data in terms of how he raised his family to be better off than he was, and that subsequent generations are better off than the previous generation, which is a very fortunate thing. So I thank you very much for watching. And if you care to leave comments on this video, please do so. I look forward to seeing everyone else's presentation, and I wish you all well, and I hope you have a good day.